All right, shall we start then? It is promptly 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, noon Eastern Standard Time, and we are getting ready to start this Zero Marketing Waste event. Thank you all for joining us, the most impactful 90-minute conversion experience of the year. Welcome everybody joining from YouTube and LinkedIn. Feel free to participate in the chat. Again, if you do hear or see anything that seems off about the video or the audio, please let us know and our moderators will work on that. I'm your host, Casey Urias, and today we're joined by our mastermind, Vic Sun, and brand expert and our chief operations ninja, Ed Davis. In an hour, Kate Radcliffe of Leap and Sean Connors of Contractor Appointments will be joining us for a spirited panel discussion. So we're going to be getting ahead now with the presentation. I hope everybody can see this clearly. One of the things that we are really excited about is we are very prevalent on the internet because we are very tech oriented. And of course, we would appreciate if you followed us on these channels. You can always follow us at OneLeg Inc., where pretty much any social media is available, as well as I very highly recommend joining our podcast. That's actually how we've met quite a few of the people that are going to be joining us today in the audience. So we have One Leg Up as one of our podcasts, and then we have Tech Squawk. One of them is more marketing, brand, and overall psychology of client interaction based, and the other one is very highly tech CRM and how you can best utilize your system based. So again, if you can follow us and subscribe to us on these channels, we would very much greatly appreciate it. So let's get into what is One Leg. All right. So, in case you guys are new to learning about our company, One Leg is the beautiful marriage between technology and creative design. What we consider ourselves to be is left brain marketers, meaning that we are connecting the creativity aspect of marketing to organized and thoughtful implementation of technology so that way client communication, touch points, and everything in between are touched on. So what we have on our slide here, we are the Left Brain Technology team who is on a mission to rid clients of marketing waste by combining thoughtful automation and creativity to deliver world-class customer service. And that is what we are about. We are very much about giving the customers the best experience possible. So to get started, we are going to talk about some BS, of course, building on human relationships. We're going to get started with our mastermind, Vic Sun. And so I want to be able to give him the floor, and I'm going to be here on the sidelines. Go ahead, Vic, take it away and let us know what we're talking about.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Now, I'm going to preface that much of this talk today, we will be incorporating behavioral science. And in particular, it's a subset of behavioral science, which is behavioral economics. Now, this is a really strange form of economics. It observes what people actually do in practice, as opposed to, developing these elaborate mathematical formulas for what they should do in a completely imaginary universe, which doesn't really exist. So it's really proper economics, and of course, I think it was Warren Buffett's partner Charlie Munger that once said, and I will paraphrase: "If economics isn't behavioral, then I don't know what is." Right now, does this sound familiar to you guys? Just because it should, right? Many of you adhere to the exact opposite of what behavioral economics tells us, and you were trained by this. Now, as marketers, the logical and intuitive strategy is to create experiences for Homo economicus instead of Homo sapiens. And that is because, we desire that control, and we've been trained that, we need to go and say, hey, there's 10 leads that we get. They're all part of this pipeline. They all saw the ad the same way. And so they have to behave this way, when really in the real world, that's not what happens. So today, if anything, I'm going to endeavor to help the marketers among you, right, the leaders, to help understand something quite simple. One is that it's not only easier to improve your customer's subjective reality, but it's also how you can get to 10x conversion, right? 10 times better conversion. Now, forget about calling or setting appointments 10 times faster. What you should focus on is the psychological element, that interplay married with technology to make your customer experience 10 times more enjoyable. And that's going to be quite a theme here for today. Now, the problem you face is that everybody in the other parts of your business, in particular operations, finance, even call center managers, everybody believes that what they do is a science and their job is to be completely logical and rational. So the first thing is, let's go and start debunking some of these logical myths, right? Number one, let's start off with how 95% of home improvement companies convert on their purchase leads, right? These are these very expensive leads from Angie, Home Advisor, Modernized Porch, Tumpack, right, etc. Let's face it, the majority of companies continue to depend on their call center agents to convert on leads. Many remodeling companies won't even schedule an appointment without a phone call. Like, they're happy to buy digital leads that didn't call them or return their phone calls, but they won't consider converting via anything else other than a phone call. And this is where that friction happens, right, between policy and procedure versus customer preference. And so companies do this. They call the lead to try to set an appointment for their sales team, but they're not just calling them, they're calling them a shitload of times and making sure that they call them as fast as possible. And so what you get is really a shit experience, right? And so let me reveal something that could potentially blow your mind. you know um there's five other contractors who bought those same leads that you paid for. Okay, so maybe that's not too much of a secret. Here's another bombshell, right? The same five contractors they've attended the same marketing, sales webinars that you have. They probably use the same platforms that you do. So they also know about speed to lead. So they're also calling just as fast and furious as you are. Okay, same thing, not a bombshell. So what's the problem here? Speed to lead becomes less of a conversion technique. It's more of a collaborative effort now between you and five other contractors buying the same leads, and you're purposely turning the customer off, right? The customers are just turned off by this experience. Really, what you end up doing is not converting 10 times better, but you're perpetuating the shitty experience. So here's an analogy I want you to think about, right? If you've ever been on a cruise, when you're really enjoying yourself and you don't care about how the cruise ship speed, right? And going to your destination. In fact, when you're enjoying yourself immensely, you want to slow things down. So what's ironic about this chat is that I've had conversations with several CEOs and owners just in the past couple of months, and I asked them this question: do you prefer getting 25 phone calls from a company trying to get an appointment with you over like a week or two, of which not one CEO or owner has ever said yes? And when they say no, I reply, so why do you do that to your customers? Okay, moving on. Here's another logical step that companies have done to really crank up that speed to lead efforts, and that's when they invest in dialers and platforms to make sure call center agents are busy dialing or getting answering machines, right? So let's do a bit of adding, and I promise you this will look very familiar. On average, for every lead you buy, right, there's a minimum of 2 calls made per day per agent, right? And our partners at Five9 have come up with these aggregate national statistics that you can look up in, and some call centers make 1 call for every 2 hours, right? And making those calls double to 4 a day on an 8-hour shift. Now, on top of the barrage of the calls, you're also sending one text message that's templated to look and sound the same as the five other contractors who've bought the same leads. So you're all hounding this lead to set an appointment, and you're doing it as fast as possible, right? So within that period of time, within that hour, they're getting all of this. And of course, it doesn't stop there. You have to send an email. So an email's sent, and of course, it will be templated to look and read like everyone else is offering, the same way that your services are. And despite all these activities, you get shit conversion, right? And that's propagated by these efforts. You're lucky to get 10, maybe 20% of these leads converted into set appointments. In the meantime, you've just helped Angie Home Advisor get richer, and you've cannibalized the leads with your competitors. And you've managed to make the once curious homeowner feel like they've just made a big mistake filling out a form. Now, After all of this is done, here's the experience, right? The person who filled out the form, the homeowner who has low buying intent, they've got about 20 plus unanswered calls, that day, over 100 unanswered calls in a week, 15 text messages or more, several emails that they've ignored or stuck in spam. Speed to lead, shit experience for both you, your call center, and the homeowner. The travesty now is that companies don't seem to believe that there are other options, right? And so they're bought in with this philosophy. The extreme waste equates not only to higher costs, which we all know because we read our reports, right? We're all looking for the next better lead source. But really, that's terrible about this is that you're perpetuating a terrible customer experience. And so you look at this, you got $100 to $300 per unset lead, right? Because you're buying leads that are setting and the majority of them are not. And then you've got out of 8 hours, the majority of that, your agents are just stalking customers instead of talking to them. So you're paying them to really look busy. And the damage to your brand, it adds up, right? People don't even seem to think about that. And here's something that's quite obvious, but I guess it's not that obvious, is that there's an opportunity cost that gets added because you're engaging low buying intent. You're chasing new leads that have low buying intent that are ghosting you instead of speaking and engaging to people who have actual high buying intent. Okay. And so for context, right, we take a look at this. Here's more math that you'll be keenly familiar. If it's at the minimum $100 lead, and most of you guys pay more than that, $10,000 lead buy a month, get about 100 leads. You set 10 to 20. You're not selling 10 to 20. You're just setting them, right? 100 hours plus calling, not talking. You're wasting at the end of the year at a minimum $120,000, and that's if you're paying your agent $17 to $20 an hour. Now think about this. These are minimums. Imagine companies that spend $1 million or more a year, and there are companies that we've spoken to in just the last 2 months here that spend $1 million a month, right? So what's the solution? First, we've got to start with aligning intents. Okay, the first step, maximum lead conversion, is looking through the eyes of your customer, and that means aligning your intents. Now if you won't agree with your own reporting and statistics, then consider this logic, right? Your intent is to set an appointment, get a sale based out of your incorrect assumption that the leads you buy are ready to buy. In fact, the reason 80 to 90% of them don't bother setting an appointment or returning your phone calls is because these homeowners have low buying intent. Let's call them curious leads. Now, they aren't serious, at least not yet, but what you do with your intent, because you're treating them like they are actually ready to buy, you end up killing their ability to be serious, to get there, because you and five other contractors cannibalize each other, right? You cannibalize the opportunity having the calls, the texts, the emails that all assume that they're ready to buy simply because they filled out a form. Now, here's another thought. If these homeowners wanted you to call them or speak to you via phone, how come the majority of them don't answer their calls, return your calls or your voicemails, right? How come you get ghosted by them despite the fact that you've sent them text emails, right? And you've provided voicemails. The simplest explanation is that the majority of the leads you've purchased from digital sources don't want a phone call. They may want it somewhere down the road, but not the way you and five other contractors are doing it today. Moving on. Some of you guys will leave this event today or watch this on when it's deployed and recording. You say, you know what? I'm going to not do anything. I'm going to try to justify sticking to whatever it is that I'm doing. Um, I mean, after all, if you're still profitable with a lead source, even with a lot of waste, doing what everybody else is doing, what's the point of doing anything different to make more money, right? Or save money? Now, for those of you who are in the opposites of that spectrum, who want to provide better customer experiences so that you could convert better, right? And you want to move those wasted dollars into better experiences, 10x more enjoyable. Okay. So here's how we need to recognize. Let's go and take a look at what everybody else is doing. You'll see it as an example. It's remarkably familiar to those of you guys who use platforms like these, that it's templated messages, and it goes from launch day all the way to day 9. We've seen some templated campaigns where it goes all the way to day 15 to 20. Many companies use these. It's set and forget. And so if there's one pneumatic mantra, because people like that you could take away from this, it's this: a forgettable experience is what you get when you set and forget. Okay. And we'll see that on this next slide. And really, this is a reflection of your marketing team simply focused on buying leads instead of doing actual marketing, right? Because when you're doing that, you just want to, it's really a lazy approach. It's, let me go and buy the leads, let me go and do something automated, and I'm just going to get set appointments and sales. Now, this isn't actual marketing. You're just purchasing the leads and just using a platform. Okay, moving on. Now, it's clear that automation is helpful. But in this case, when you're using platforms, because they're not necessarily solutions, there's platforms, the automation that you get from using templates and things that people really don't like, it doesn't engage them, it doesn't provide them with that burst of dopamine in their brain because they're enjoying themselves. You're just automating the alienation of your potential customers, because the blue ocean of opportunities are people who are curious, not serious. And then when your first impression sucks, like this example, it's very hard to get to the second, third, or even ninth impression that you're expecting it to get better, or somehow you're throwing a Hail Mary that somehow they'll change their mind, especially when it all looks, sounds, and feels the same way as everyone else. So how do you fix that? Right? You'll see here, like everything looks templated, day 1 to day 9, everybody's doing the same thing. Your first impression sucks. Let's look at what people are doing right now. And it's that text message on the mobile device. Let's go show that. And so this is the old way of doing things, right? Or at least the current way of doing things. Lots of words. You've got an external link. And really what you're doing is you're not building a lot of trust. Again, there's no potential for a dopamine burst in the brain where people can enjoy themselves. There's no sound, there's no video, nothing, there's no imagery. Really terrible way. And then you're surprised that 5 other companies are doing this and you're not getting a conversion. Okay. And then if somebody does click on this link, here's what happens, right? You take them to a landing page or your website that has 17 call to actions, right? I'm exaggerating this case. I can see at least 6 or 7, right? And it's very confusing. And so now you're perpetuating those 70 to 95% bounce rates that you see often on Google Analytics, right, from your campaigns. Or when you look at your UTM codes, they're not really, that engaging or that successful, because you're not getting those people doing any call to action, right? It's not nothing personal about this. It's terrible. So how do we go and fix this? How do we get to the 10x better conversion? Well, again, let's focus on, instead of going 10x faster, speed to lead, go 10x more enjoyable. Not 10x faster, 10x more enjoyable. People actually prefer slowing things down when they're enjoying themselves, remember? And so improving the subjective experience is easier too than in trying to provide an objective reality. You should realize that it's probably harder for you to continue to improve on 10x faster dialing from your agents and connecting with people, because you're going to come up against the laws of physics and budget at that point. But it's probably easier to go and cheaper and more effective in conversion by improving your customers' experience. So looking at this, our partners at Channel Automation, and Hosky Media, they've helped several companies in just the last quarter sustain, this is a key word, and improve by increasing their lead conversion by up to 10x. And this is how they do it. They add clever and engaging multimedia to the emails, text, social, and live chat channels, a true omni-channel experience, right, for homeowners. And not just the homeowners as one funnel, the overwhelming majority of the curious ones, while capturing the top funnel of the ones who are serious. Now, I don't mean just adding videos and images here because it's not that simple, right? What's simple is the execution, and simple is hard to achieve, obviously, but it's coming up with a personalized copy directed towards those funnels of leads. Every piece of messaging is personalized. Everything's mobile friendly. Everything's on the first page. No need to swipe up and down, right? Very easy. You've got these engaging pieces of video that's directed to this person. And so the strategy assumes that every lead is curious, not serious. And for the ones who are serious, they're able to schedule that appointment without a phone call. And by doing so, this is where your omni-channel experience, with 10 times more enjoyable, more engaging, allows for that 10x conversion. This is where, yep, good example. And that's just a little bit of a thing there. You can pull it up from the platform itself. Now, let me tell you, the engagement here is not dependent or reliant on phone calls. It's not forcing your agents to be the progenitor of the setting of the appointments. You can do it based on what clients prefer. Okay, moving on. Okay, so we know that one of the issues is how do I get rid of spam likely then, right? If it's not phone calls and do that, well, again, we got to make the experience 10 times more enjoyable in the channel that is preferred by people with mobile devices, and that is now text messages, live chat, and emails. Live chat, and you see this with Amazon, they have overwhelming customer satisfaction, and that's why most people actually live chat or chat with agents as opposed to preferring a phone call. Now, this is something to think about in terms of the returns. We found, right, on our case studies that if a company, a home improvement company with an average ticket of about $15,000, there's a 1% improvement in texts and emails approximately gets you about $1 million of additional revenue over a 12 to 15-month period. So that's like adding one top sales rep in your team having leads with higher buying intent carved out from the ones you do not convert on now. You don't need to buy more leads. It's there. And you do that through MMS, not just simple SMS. And SMS is pretty much dominating what most platforms are using. There are limitations to the platforms you're using now. Channel automation helps support what they can't do. You don't need to replace it. And you see it here, like interactive custom GIF images that are customized per funnel. You'll also see um, we are able to provide contact cards, documents, attachments, and of course, it wouldn't be complete if you couldn't provide inline videos with stylized, bolded text. Again, these things are proprietary to Channel Automation's platform, right, and some of the media. And so we'll provide a little bit of a sample there of an inline video, something that you just click on your messaging app. Yeah, so you see it, and we'll show this later, but yeah, good. And so what you saw there was as a sample. You don't need to go anywhere else. You don't need to take them external link. They're right on their app. Again, very enjoyable experience. Again, let's focus on mobile. Everyone has one, and that's really what we're trying to do here, right? We're trying to go through that blue ocean of your opportunity. And so let's look at the full demo now of what that's going to look like. Okay, we first start by having personalized experiences. So you see here, we don't need to just text people, they can opt in, right? And we can use short codes, we can use your own numbers, we can use separate numbers depending on products. Let's say you're an exterior remodeling company and you do roofing, windows, or siding. Each one of those, keywords, for example, can be assigned to each number, thereby providing a personalized experience. We have copywriters from Hosky Media and OneLeg, right, where we actually provide the best way for people to opt in, because a lot of people are they don't like that when you say, hey, opt in here, press yes or no. There's a particular way to write that copy that allows for the people to actually say, you know what, yeah, I do want that, and I want to provide you with my info. Once they've done that, here's the next step. You're going to start seeing, right, inline videos. Now, inline videos are proprietary to Channel Automation's platform, and it supports, if you're a Hatch user or Marlamar or Lead Perfection, i360 or Market Sharp, right? All of these are going to be part of that. But we curate these videos so that you have introduction, you have instructional videos, and for those marketers that want these creative ads, we build these per funnel, so that your roofing lead that came from Modernize has a different set of instructions, videos, or introduction from the people who came from Angie who wanted Windows. And that really personalizes the experience. And again, when it's personalized, you see a nice video, you get this, say things, say 100 words without actually typing it. You say it through a video, you get that dopamine burst. And of course, when you do that, customers are more inclined to want to listen to what you have to say or actually follow through a call to action. The other thing that we want to show you is that the stylized texting, because if you don't have a video to show or GIF images, right? The benefit of channel automation solution is to be able to stylize these texts so they're bolded, so that people can see that. If you want to emphasize certain things, and again, all of this from within the messaging app on a mobile device, right? You're not taking them anywhere else, making it frictionless, right? And again, you can see here that you can actually show sound and video through your ads, right? If that's what you want to provide as well. Now, when they finally have gone through this whole thing, we can capture that information. So, what channel automation really does with your campaigns with Hosky and OneLeg is that all this collected data is now used to build the personalized landing page. You see, you're collecting the email with the first name and everything else. And what ends up happening is that you now have a link that people want to click on because they say, hey, it's personalized for me. And then they see that. They see their first name, they see the product that they wanted, they see a video with sound. And we're going to show you what these landing pages look like, where it's all video and then there's deep links from within it. It's very, very cool. It's not just like a landing page with several call to actions. It's super interactive. Okay, let's get to the next page here. And so this is where we're going to show you, this is the personalized landing page of how, and you'll see this on a mobile device like a iPhone, Safari. You'll see the browser on the bottom, right? You see, this is a landing page, but it's a video. And let's go ahead and showcase what that experience looks like. Perfect. Now you'll see here that from within the video, there are these links, and the links are, we can customize these anywhere in the video as call to actions. And what's really amazing is that when they click on it, they can immediately get to their messaging app for text, email app, and it's everything's pre-populated, right? And so it's a wonderful experience. And for those of high buying intent, they can click on these links and immediately go and schedule appointments. So again, you remove the friction, you make it easy for people, and that is what makes the entire journey enjoyable, right? And over time, this is what potential curious homeowners prefer, as opposed to you bombarding them with phone calls. Um, Last few features here that we'd like to show is, yep, the next slide. And what we're going to do here is we're going to show some of the creative, because it's not just about, hey, just send any type of video. It's pretty easy, but it's engaging people with the right copy, with some clever, right, interesting, dopamine inducing videos that doesn't look like you're selling them. And so we want to showcase that here, and I hope you enjoy it. Perfect. And so again, these are the videos that really help your curious leads, the majority of them. As they watch these creative ones, they enjoy it, they follow you, they ask questions, they engage you. And when you're enjoying yourself as a potential customer, you're top of mind. That brand is top of mind. You rise above the top, that because everybody else is doing the boring stuff that you want to ignore. You're doing things that make that conversion rise, make it so that the customer is enjoying themselves. So there's just two more features here, and we're at the end of this particular section. um, Wanted to show you guys that with channel automation, for those of you guys who are like very interested, okay, well, on top of that, how do I know that these things are converting? Well, channel automation's able to go and connect to Zoom, Teams, Slack, and as soon as somebody's engaging your emails, texts, and even your live chat, right? You're notified right away from your group channels, right? Your team channels immediately. And for those of you guys who use Market Sharp, Lead Perfection, i360, I know there's frustrations when leads come in and you don't know if those pop-ups don't help you or the emails don't. This is quite helpful because you know it real time as soon as it happens, right? From your favorite group channels, whether you're using Teams, Zoom, Slack, or what have you. And really, the beautiful part about channel automation is that it integrates with everything. You do need, to be able to go and let them know what it is that you're integrating with, but it's anywhere between your Mailchimp account. It could be with your Lead Perfection. It could be with your Gmail calendars, your Google Sheets, whatever that is. You're able to integrate that and provide that seamless management for your team. For those of you guys who are impressed by this, there's a QR code here. Scan that, and we do have a free personalized demo for you guys. Get ahead of your competition. For those of you guys who aren't, great. Your competition will obviously benefit from this. I appreciate everybody coming in and stick around because there's more really good stuff to come.
Thank you so much, Vic. I really appreciate your technical presentation. For me, it is music to my ears as a fellow tech enthusiast. So, as Vic was saying, you can scan that code to book a demo with us. And also, we are currently having a promotion right now where the first 5 companies to do so will also be getting 1 month free of channel automation, which is a massive value. So, if you have seen something that you really like here and you want to try it out with no risk, I recommend taking us up on that. All right, so for this next part, we want to open up the questions to the audience. We have covered a lot, and I want to hear anything from you, including opposition, agreement, violent reaction to anything that you can think of. If you are currently in the YouTube and LinkedIn chat, please use the chat feature to ask us some questions. We're going to get started covering a couple of very frequently asked questions that we get. And I want to get right into it. So let's get some insight on the creative side of the customer experience. Here to do that is Ed Davis, and let's get going.
Were there any questions, Casey, just before I get started?
I'm looking right now, and I do see people in, but I haven't gotten any questions that have come through as of yet.
Okay. If anybody does have any questions as we go along, just pop them into the chat feature of whatever platform you might be on, whether it's LinkedIn or YouTube, and somebody will address it, and we'll pull that into the panel discussion that will be kicking off here in about 20 minutes or so. So my session is going to cover the creative side, right? Vic talked you through the technology piece of it. And obviously there's content, there's creativity that has to sort of be the fuel, is the engine of some of that. And one of the things that we notice, excuse me, within this space is, and Vic has covered it quite well, and it's not just on the technology side that everybody's doing the exact same thing, using the same platforms. As we're going to find out here in just a minute, from a creative standpoint, you're all doing the exact same things as your competitors. And so one of the things that I want to acknowledge before we get too deep into this is just a couple thoughts and concepts that'll be really handy moving forward. I think that's a really important distinction, because the pandemic has created a line in the sand, if you will. And I think before the pandemic, you look at your customers, you look at marketing, you look at quote unquote brand, and I know that's a little bit of a dirty word in the home improvement space. I think a lot of people think of that as a logo that you might put on a shirt, a hat, or a truck, but it's far more than that. And I'm not going to read through this, but on the left-hand side, you sort of see how companies interacted or leveraged marketing um, previously. And here's where we're at today. And you really need to understand who your customers are. You really need to understand um, how do you make sure that they're having a fantastic experience because they want to have a fantastic experience. As Vic said, if you put yourself in your customer's shoes, do you want 100 phone calls? Do you want 70 different text messages? Do you want 15 different emails, all because you filled out a digital form? Probably not. And so we just want people to think about these things as we move forward. The other thing that you really need to think about is brand effectiveness. And really, when we talk about brand effectiveness as part of this discussion, we're really talking about creative effectiveness. And what is it that what are the images? What are the words? What's the video that you're using as part of a creative marketing campaign to your customers? And there's three real specific words that I want everybody to be in tune with as you move forward. Number one, your creative, your brand, it has to be distinctive. By that, we mean um, you need to come up with something that is creative. You need to come up with something that is bespoke. You need to come up with something that your competitors aren't doing. And that'll become very important. And we'll have some real world examples of that here in just a sec. The other thing you want to do is be consistent. A lot of companies in this space, they'll come up with a little ad, or they'll come up with a little value pack flyer, or a little door hanger. They go put that on. They'll utilize that imagery. They'll utilize that promotion for the next 2 weeks, 2 months, or so. And then they go, well, I got 50 leads. I set 5 appointments and I got 1 deal. Great. I need to move on to the next creative concept. Don't do that. Be consistent. Find the things that work. Find the things that can span various channels, whether it's emails, text, door hangers, phone calls, your website, videos. It doesn't matter. Be consistent about it, because the consistency is what helps customers make the connection between what they're seeing and what they may give a second and a half of their attention to your brand versus somebody else's. The other thing is you need to do something to get noticed. Now, Vic does, and the technology team and our creative team, we've done a very good job within this presentation of showing you some of these creative examples: the cowboys on the roof, the nose pressed up against the window. But and those are concepts, but you need to be practical about it, and you need to do something that is contextual to who you are as a company, what your sort of culture is, what your personality is, and who you believe your customers to be. We had a window client, and they just sort of had this ideal, this sort of aesthetic that a window was really an opportunity for kids or people to imagine or sort of dream off into what could be. And so that became sort of the visuals that we used. It wasn't somebody sitting at a dinner table staring out onto the street in front of their house through their new window. It was them sitting at the window and contemplating, travel to space, or that next vacation they were going to take to a beach town or something along those lines. So you just really need to think about these things in a much, much different way. And so here's where I want to show you the practical example, right? This is taken from my Val pack that I got in the mail about 3 weeks ago. And I've blocked out the logos for the most part. I think I've done a fairly good job of that to not incriminate people. These are all air duct cleaners. These are all 4 different companies. These were all in the exact same Val pack. And I guarantee you, Everybody on this phone has had this same experience if they're in a Valpak, right? You might do windows, but there's 2 or 3 other window companies in there. You might do floors, but there's 2 or 3 other flooring companies in there. In this instance, we've got 4 air duct cleaning and carpet cleaning companies. They all look the exact same, right? In fact, we even go so far as, you look at here, they all have almost the exact same green that they use, right? Because they want to convey that they're environmentally friendly. So so if you're a homeowner, if you're a customer, you're not actually associating company A or B specifically to what it is that you're looking for. It just so happens to be, I'm going to choose the one that I don't drop, the one that I don't throw away, the one that, maybe has a little bit better of a discount. Oh, this one's $99, they're $59, something along those lines, right? And that's not how you want to do marketing. That's not how you want to grow business. That's how you're just going to maintain. That's how you're just going to compete with your competitors. And you're into that vicious cycle that Vic did a very good job of articulating previously. So what we want to do is we want to help people come up with campaignable ideas or big, long ideas. And what we mean by that is these are not episodic. This is not the CEO of a solar panel company who's sitting in his office on a Friday and thinking, you know what, I need more sales come June. Therefore, I've got this idea for a promotion. I'm going to go get a little image of the sun beating down on a roof and somebody sitting there with a drink in their hand. That's not what this is. What we look at is we take into account what the audience is, and we actually dissect those into family. For one client, we have homeowners, we have Airbnb customers, we have commercial customers, right? Because all of those images are slightly different. All of those messages are slightly different, and you need to take that into consideration. And so in order for you to have a campaignable idea, it needs to create awareness. As we've talked about, it needs to be differentiating. Does it provide a clear message? Is it consistent with who you all are as a company, what your values are, what your brand is? Does it inspire? Does it create some level of emotionality? Because the way the world works now is people no longer make rational buying decisions, especially in the consumer space. It's all emotional. They use the rational side to justify the engagement of a company, to justify the purchase of a service, but they make their decision based on emotion. Does it work across all different types of media channels? Does it work in TV? Does it work in radio? That's a really important point. Does it work online? Does it work in text? Does it work in email? Does it work with multitude of audiences? And does it account for every phase of the buyer journey, not just the top of the funnel, not just the closing phase? Can you utilize that idea, that messaging throughout their journey with you? And so one of the things that we want to do is give you a practical example of that. And so we know that a lot of people who are attending this are in the bathroom renovation space. I promise you, what you see on your screen currently is 6 different companies' visuals for ads that have been run in the last quarter. And you won't be able to distinguish any of them. Now, some of you, Vic in particular, he's really good at understanding products and whatnot, and he sort of can pick some of these things out. But I challenge anybody to be able to tell me with any sort of certainty who any of these companies are, right? So let's think about this a different way, right? If you were a bathroom renovation company and you were trying to gain a little bit of traction, you were trying to gain a little bit of a differentiated proposition, if you were trying to gain the attention of a potential customer for more than a second as they flip through the Valpak, how are you going to do that? Well, here's our view, right? Let's take the standard visual, and this is historic, of a lady who's had a long day chasing kids around or living her life being a professional woman, and let's flip that on its head, right? Let's put a guy in the bath. Let's have a beer sitting next to him instead of a glass of wine, right? And now it's not just a bathroom, it's a sanctuary room. We can still say all of the things, the features and benefits bit, American made, easy to clean, innovative technology, whatever those propositions are. But the visual is what gets people's attention, right? Because that's not what's programmed in their head. They're programmed to see a lady there drinking a glass of wine with bubbles on her head. That's not what this is. We take a different view. Let's flip it on its head. Here's another example of what that could look like, right? It's not a bathroom, it's an emergency room. So this young lady, she's been out all day. She's had coffee in the morning with a group of friends. She'd played soccer in the afternoon or softball or something along those lines. And now, she's been invited to a party this evening, and she's got to get changed in a hurry. So it's an emergency, right? And so again, it's flipping some of these concepts on their head and applying the same sort of logic, same sort of visuals in these examples to a very common type of ad. And in this way, these are things that would get noticed far easier, far more frequently than what we showed you previously. And as I said before, the other thing that you want to make sure is these are static ads, right? And so do they work if there's movement? And we'll show you here how they do. So again, we're conveying a lot of the very same messages, but we're adding a level of creativity to them to get somebody's attention, to make it, to place it into the realm of the practical. Nobody has this sparkling bathroom, right? These things get used. They get used for washing the dog. They get used for washing the kid. They get used for drying the laundry, or whatever the case may be. Let's acknowledge that, because those are the things that put customers in the same frame of mind so that you can then go sell them. And oh, by the way, as Vic talked about, these are the things that are going to get noticed because they're different than what your competitors are doing, who are just bombarding with text messages or emails talking about get 15% off, get 20%. We can still do that. But if that's what you lead with and your competitor's leading with it, who's going to win out? You don't know. It's not curated. It's not predictable necessarily, and therefore, let's look at a change. So again, this sort of wraps up this portion of mine. I know we've got a couple questions, and people are looking for some additional information. So we want to get to the panel discussion a little bit quicker. Remember, be distinctive. Excuse me. Be noticeable. Be memorable, and let's make sure that you have a strong, clear, organized customer value proposition. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Casey. Excuse me, absolutely. Vic, do you want to take care of that?
Yeah, it really depends. I think this is why you do the demo. If you are engaging 10,000 leads a year, um, and that's very different in terms of the pricing versus a company that's doing 100,000 leads a year. But at the minimum, I think it's about less than $2,600. And if you think about this, it's really not allocating you budget, because you're already wasting all this money for sure. You just look at your reports, and it's allocating a very small percentage of that towards, one, the content, building out this engaging content, and then working with our partners at Channel Automation and OneLeg and Hosky to be able to do the subscription to the marketing solution, and of course you tie that down with the rest of your other platforms. But I think at the minimum, it's less than buying 20 of the leads that you're buying now at the rate that you're buying that do nothing for you. That's, I think, the answer to that question.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. We have added in Kate from Leap. Welcome, Kate. It's a pleasure to have you. Um, the last piece of the customer experience puzzle is marketing, and today Ed and Vic is going to be, and myself are going to be joined by Kate Ratcliffe and Sean Connors for a panel discussing a variety of topics. So, just a little introduction to Kate. Oh, we got Sean coming in here too. I'm going to go ahead and let him in. Kate Ratcliffe is
Right on
currently a.
cue.
Hey, welcome. Also, anybody who isn't currently talking, I do appreciate you just turning off your mics and cameras just so that way we can get a wonderful view of everybody as they are speaking. Nice, big. And now I will get into the introductions. So, Kate Ratcliffe is currently the marketing manager at Leap, where she specializes in on site and virtual event strategy, partnerships, brand continuity, marketing operations, and Leap is transforming the home improvement industry as a first ever end-to-end contractor sales software application, digitizing every stage of the in-home sales. I personally am a big fan of Leap. And Sean Connors is the founder and CEO of Contractor Appointments, a performance-based um, lead generator providing predictable growth for top home services brands on a pay per lead, pay per appointment, pay per sales basis. Now, Sean geeks out on over building systems, structures, automation that empower customer experiences. The past 14 years of his career have been spent in technology and lead generation for home service brands. I very warmly welcome the both of you, and I'm super excited to hear from your expert opinions. So, just to get started, is everybody ready? Ready to get going? Just checking in. Perfect.
We're
Thumbs
good.
up from you too, Sean. Perfect. Hey, he's got a sly fast one. Great. Wonderful. All right. So first question, I'm going to address this one to Kate. From each of your perspectives, this is going to be Kate answering first. What do you see is the biggest challenge companies in the home improvement space face?
That's a tough one. I mean, generally speaking, I think all I'm ever hearing is about recruiting and staffing and retention. That is seeming to be one of the biggest issues. But you can really push that into a marketing funnel of really painting your culture in a good way. So, are you just some company that they're going to join and get a paycheck from, or are they part of an organization that means something to them and their family? Are you invested in them, and how are you showing them that? Making sure that they're really their resources are allocated to their employees rather than just to hitting the bottom line. So I think while it's the big struggle right now of hiring, retention, and recruiting, you can do something with that. Marketing isn't just about making the leads. It's also about making sure that you have a brand awareness.
I think to build off of that, the resourcing bit that Kate talks about there is 100% correct. We're seeing that across a number of industries, and so if you think back to the first part of this whole webinar and what Vic was talking about, the efficiency that you can create by automating some of these things and having better automation and better engagement. I don't want anybody to lose their job or anything along those lines. But if you're sitting there struggling to hire call center people, if you do what Vic is suggesting with channel automation and things along those lines, maybe you don't need to hire those people. So you actually become far more efficient. I think, Sean, you might have a really interesting perspective because I know you talk to a lot of people on the practical side of the marketing, not to say that Kate isn't doing the practical side of marketing, of course, but so what are you seeing, Sean?
Yeah, I obviously see it from very much a marketing related lens. That's most of our conversations are with marketing managers within the space. And that's so a lot of the bigger issues that we hear are staffing for call centers and on that side of things. And I think lead volume is always a big thing. Even this month, a lot of lead volume has decreased. And that with fear of recession, all those things looming here too, and on it kind of creates a little bit of fear. And some of these home improvement companies, that demand is going to decrease, and what do you do about it? So there's multiple issues that are kind of facing the industry right now, but at the end of the day, the core of kind of play off what Kate was saying here too is differentiating yourself from a cultural perspective. Is that, and I like kind of the series of the whole webinar is like you have to differentiate yourself in a space that is crowded, in a space that if you're selling baths, how do you do it differently? How do you look and feel differently? Even if you sell the same product, how do you be different? And I think that ultimately that's the same thing with employment. How do you get the best talent? How do you get the best salespeople and the right people into your call center? It ultimately boils down to just being differentiated, and that can be as simple as the brand and the values that you stand for, and leading with those rather than leading with the product that you sell.
May I interject a little bit on in terms of the practicality for because I like what Kate started with the recruitment bit. You just start with a call center because we talked about how many home improvement companies are relying on that and they're having trouble. Just look at your call center, and if you're managing them in your mindset as a VP or maybe their call center manager is, I only want them making phone calls and outbound calls to boot, and they have this program where they're just calling, and you're not training them on text, email, and live chat. Now just put yourself in that position of that person. You talk about culture. This is culture, right? How would you feel if you were hired and you were treated like you were a machine, and all they want you to do is this very specialized 1800s industrial revolution type, I'm just specializing in just pressing this button right here, that's all I'm doing, right? Like a factory worker. Call center agents, if you're relying on them and you want to build on this culture, build on their skill set, pay them, give them a chance to make more because you're upskilling them, right? But the attitude that comes with the leadership of the call centers, for example, with the VPs, that's really, I think, one of the issues of why companies are having trouble hiring. Because not only are they offering low pay, the same as everybody else, with bonus programs and spiffs, and like nobody gives a shit about that. You know what I mean? Because when you're in there and you find that the culture's terrible, like you're out of there. You're going to go to another place that pays more. But when you get in there, and let's say that let's pretend that I know what I'm talking about because I've managed call centers in the past. You may have a low pay, but I go in there and it's like, wow, I'm learning things that I would have never learned at a high paying job, and I'm upskilling for the future. I'll stick around here, right? And see how it goes in 6 months, a year, and I'll learn and I'll sharpen my knife. And I think during that time where you're upskilling them, you get the returns from growing those people. Then you can have a pathway to higher pay because now you're going to pay for them getting better. And I think that that's as practical as an application that people should be listening to, because the reality is if you just have better ads or you just have better pay, the culture bit that Kate here and Sean's talking about, it's gonna boil down to the on the job experience and what it is that they're doing day in and day out. And if it's just calling and outbounding, and I'm not learning how to communicate via text, email, or live chat, I mean, let's face it, right? We're humans. We're not gonna want to do that thing over and over and over again for 8 hours.
Well, and so since
Yeah.
since Vic has opened the culture box, and this isn't going to be any sort of surprise to Sean, because when we were on Sean's show a couple months back, Sean sort of brought in the culture comment as well. I think that is, to me, and of course I would say this just given my background, to me, one of the biggest things that I don't believe business owners, especially in the home improvement space, but much wider than that, of course, really pay attention to, which is in fact the culture. And I think people are not stupid, right? And so we're talking about call centers here, or even contractor teams or subcontractors or whatnot. If you have a company where And I'm going to refrain from using a specific example because there was one that really pissed me off the other day. If you have an example of a company culture where people, you're just churning through call center people, you're just churning through subcontractors, you're churning through the person who answers the phone at the reception desk or whatever, you really need to have a conversation with yourself about what it is that's going on in that building or within your business. And I think what compounds that is, and I've seen it in this industry, I've experienced it. You'll have an owner or people in upper management who are partners, and they're driving the $150,000 Mercedes. They live in the $500,000 house, but they're talking to contractor appointments about, hey, I know you charge X amount, but can I get 50% off of that because, my business is struggling a little bit? Or they're talking to Vic and I, hey, how about if I give you $5 per lead you get me? Well, Vic and I sit there and go, well, we can do the math on that. If you do that, that means you get like $1 million. You're going to give me $10,000. I'll take that deal, but why should I take that deal? I think those are things that you really have to think about. If you're going to be a greedy big bastard of an owner, you know, sorry, Vic, I know you told me not to say that, but if that's where you're going to be, then your business deserves to be where it is in this industry or in this
Ed,
climate.
it sounds like you have an opinion.
Always. Always.
Well, and I think it really, whether you're talking marketing, whether you're talking your sales operations, whether you're just talking about your HR resources, there's something to be said about leaning into where we are in the world. We're not out of a pandemic. Heck, my sister just got COVID, we are very much in a world where we are connected in more ways than ever, but also so disconnected. And then at the same time, you are welcomed into people's homes daily. You guys are in my dining room right now. That is something that you have to kind of keep in mind is when you're looking at recruiting and staffing, they are spending almost their entire existence with you. We get what? In a standard 9-to-5 job, you get 2 days off and you're grinding 5. How many of us actually do that, by the way? I know I work on the weekends. So it's, you've got to invest in your staff if you want them to invest in you. And so creating that culture, and then again, getting that out there. And then you also have that ability to kind of connect with your customer base at that point of like, we care about our people, so we're going to care about you. Like kind of bridging the gap, bringing it full circle. You can't have one without the other.
I completely agree. And I always love the culture talk, and I like that we're all kind of in alignment on that as well. I did want to ask you, kind of going into, we're talking about connecting within your company now. What do you think is the most what do you think it is that most home improvement companies get wrong about marketing to their customers and their consumers? And this time, let's lead off with Sean.
I think just marketing to their customers overall. I think leading with their values, leading with culture. I think is something that differentiates most companies themselves. I think to the earlier part of the webinar here, I think most companies are still using very stock images, very a lot of generic marketing when it comes to that, and there's not a whole lot of differentiation between you and the next company. And I think that's a key. You just need to be the purple cow, as like Seth Godin talks about, is you need to be something that's different in the marketplace and show yourself as such, because like the leads that are in the industry, we provide leads and they're a shared lead to our contractors that we work with. But the companies who stand apart are companies who naturally differentiate themselves in one fashion or another. And that's what wins over customers today. So if you can reach people where they want to be reached via text message, via phone call, and via even direct mail, and then continue to follow up based on their sales cycle, understanding that not everyone's ready to buy today. Their intent is curiosity. Some are really interested, some are not. So I think having the systems in place to be able to really long-term nurture a customer for wherever they're at, understanding that, and then moving them forward. And then kind of lastly, I think we've seen in the marketplace is that we've put all this emphasis in sales training. As soon as you get in the home, there's a clear step selling process. But what's happening in today's market is that sales like needs analysis, it has started and been really focused on in the sale instead of in your call center environment, of just actually uncovering why people have called you today or why they filled out that form on the website to begin with, asking those detailed and inquisitive questions, and equipping your call center with the answers and how to be able to really get the pain and the reasons why they called you today, to be able to really help direct them in the right direction towards obviously booking an appointment, or in a different direction towards just information at this given point. So it's kind of a all-encompassing way of being able to really serve customers and meet them where they're at today.
So
And
not talking at them, talking with them is what you're saying. Is like what a lot of people get wrong is that it's just a one-sided conversation.
I do have a
well,
question for the panel, like on just this tangent, Sean, because you mentioned you know, what I mean, everybody here is a cell phone, everybody here is technology, but what's this drive to simply rely on a phone call? I mean, just like just between you and Kate and Ed, like let's start with you guys. Like, how has that not been like every other industry is kind of like, yeah, we have live chat, engaging text and emails and social. Why is it in home improvement? It's like it
It's
has to
old
be a phone
school.
call.
It's old school. One call close, man. That is how we do. No, it's that. I mean, hey, we're in tech, and we even like I'll go to the sales guys. I'll be like, "Hey, you making that a one call close?" And they're like, "No." Like, that's not how we do this.
It's easy, right? It's easy, and I think that and Kate's right. It's historic, and not just to home improvement. It's historic from a sales standpoint. Um, when the revolution came and telephone sales came into play, it eliminated the need to have a guy on the road in a car driving here, there, and everywhere knocking on doors. And in fact, that person could maybe knock on a couple dozen doors in a day as he worked through a neighborhood. Well, now, hello, nope, nobody there. Great. Like he can work through a dozen phone calls in 5 minutes. And so that's what it
But Ed,
is.
I would challenge
Oh,
you
and I
on
don't
that.
want to do that. I don't want to do that.
No, I'm going to
Yeah.
challenge you on that. The guy walking around with the encyclopedias that was selling it, do you think he wanted to come back to the house the second time with all those
hell no.
encyclopedias? Absolutely not. So, it is ingrained in sales culture.
It is 100%. You are absolutely correct. And it's crap. It's crap. And I think that, we've, and Casey's invited everybody to listen to the various podcasts that we have. And we, a year ago, we sort of became known because we made some, we had some very sharp criticism for this industry in terms of how we handled one call close and canvassing and things along those lines. And I think, it's just habit at this point, and bad habit. And I think that I'm not saying that you can't canvass. I'm not saying that you can't do phone calls. I think what I'm saying is let's maybe think about it a little bit differently. Let's maybe be a little bit more respectful of the relationship that you're actually trying to cultivate. Because as we've seen, and with some of our clients who do more of a consultative sale, where it is based on trying to build a relationship, because in the future you may need my help, in the future you may need X, Y, and Z. Those are the ones that actually pay off. And I'll give a great example. We have a client, we've literally helped them establish and build their brand. They came to us almost a year ago. They were leaving their company. They're two guys. I want to start a home improvement company. Here's why I don't want to be part of this company anymore. Here's sort of what our personal values are. We built an entire company around these two guys and their personal, sort of their brand's values. And in that, they absolutely abhor the one call close. And instead, what they do is they look to build relationships. They look to actually talk to people. And as Sean pointed out, what's actually your issue, right? And what are you trying to do? how does your family actually use this space, instead of saying, I've got to sell 3 shower installs this week. Therefore, do you want to buy a shower install? Nope. I can't possibly convince you. Great. I'm out. Instead, it's the other way around. And that has led them to, and it's one of the reasons why in one of those videos you see, are you an Airbnb owner? Because of that relationship style, they've actually made a couple of relationships with some key like mass Airbnb owners. And this guy was like, oh, this is a great time for me to remodel 80 of my properties. I like you dudes. Can I put you on a retainer in home improvement and a retainer in home remodeling? They're on a retainer to do that. And it's because it's a relationship. It's not because, do you want to buy? Do you want to buy? Do you want to buy? Like that to me is the proof that people really do need to think about the one call close and how they approach. But then I'm a bomb thrower. So
Well, and to kind of build off that though, Casey originally asked, about, what are you home improvement industry folks doing wrong with marketing? And I would say my first question is, do you know who you're selling to? Because I know as a millennial homeowner that my block is almost, I would say about 75% millennials, but every single time someone comes to knock on my door, call, give me a direct mail flyer, something like that, it is an antiquated messaging. It is not built around who you're selling to. Don't come into my home and ask, to see my significant other or my dad. Like, do you know who you're selling to? I own this home. Vic, you're laughing, but straight up, that's what
I'm
happened.
going to turn my hat around for the old school people in
he was
the
like,
audience.
he was like, do you have a boyfriend, a husband, a caretaker, a father? I'm like, I got me. So it's like, you gotta know who before you even talk to me. It's not hard to figure out. All you have to ask is, hey, who's going to be the number one point of contact on this sale? Who would be the number 2? If there's a number 2, they'll tell you, and they'll tell you who their partner is or their dad or whatever. They will tell you everything you need to know, but you got to know who you're selling to. And if you are selling to a 98-year-old woman who needs new windows, you're going to approach that differently than me who wants to remodel my bathroom. Those are 2 different types of conversations, and you have to be able to tailor them both at the marketing level and then in the sales level.
Kate, has somebody given you your own podcast?
No. They don't want me to just have a mic.
I think who's they? I think Vic, Casey. I think somewhere along the line we need to bring Kate onto a podcast or 2.
Yeah, I think you fit like right in with our commentary. We talk the exact same way.
I'm interested from Sean's perspective, because Kate brings up this point, like why, like you brought up a really good point there, and it's all tying together where it's really sales focused when really there's a lot of people who are curious, and just like Kate just bringing, like there's different types of ICPs, ideal customer personas or profiles. What's causing that, Sean? Like, because you provide leads, you provide opportunities. Why are contractors just like, oh yeah, that's a sale, I just got to focus on the sale? Like, why is there no romance? Why is there no, like, you know what I mean? Romance me first a little bit, get me interested.
Yeah, Sean, I want romance.
I think the
Someone
truth
say
of the matter
romance?
is that there is when there's an abundance of leads out there, and then you can just purchase another lead on that side of things. The process works. If you've grown a company, like you can just, it's a numbers game. That's the sales mantra we all know. And if the numbers game has worked for you, and you're okay with it, it often doesn't lead to a whole lot of change. And I think the companies who will, again, differentiate themselves are the ones who take every customer and understand what their needs are, and then truly be able to sell and adapt to them. There's so many more things that you can do with a shared lead, especially that they don't know you from Adam. They don't know your company. They don't know your brand. There's nothing there that's set a foundation for relationship. So like your first phone call and communication or text message or email to that customer, it means everything. So that's your first introduction to that customer. And the more personal you are and building a relationship from there, It that's the most crucial piece of it. In that, and not every lead comes in at the same intent. Every lead channel, every marketing channel, from social to paid search, to just every any of our publisher traffic, it's all over the board. That's why we actually like most of our customers on revenue share, and because we're honest that because some leads will be very high intent, and other leads will and they'll take a lot of leads to convert into a sale. 1 to 2% of the low intent leads are going to convert into a net sale versus paid search and all those traffic, they'll convert at a much higher rate based on your category. So it's understanding where the traffic is coming from, understanding how to be able to build that personal connection and relational connection as fast as possible, and differentiating yourself, on that is necessary. But I think at the end of the day, like even why we, answer your other question, why phone calls are so important is that I think we all crave the personal connection, in that most companies want a phone call and a personal connection with their potential customer to feel comfortable to send their own sales rep to that location. So I think it has like a good undertone of heart behind it. It's like, well, we want to make sure we can help them. We don't want to send a sales rep out there and to waste that sales rep's time with someone we can't serve or help. So I think it has good like meaning and intention behind it. It doesn't mean it's the right answer to the question. Meeting a homeowner and a customer where they're at, there is a balance there of making sure you're sending a sales representative to a customer who is qualified, making sure that you do have an opportunity to answer all of their questions and to present a product that actually solves their solution. And if both homeowners are decision makers, you should know about that. And they should be home at that time of the sale, because you're able to present product and price and give them a realistic picture of what that looks like, and make sure you can give them a price that actually makes sense. So one call close isn't, you know, it's not, you shouldn't ever do it, but you should be able to give a price and a product to the right people. And to your point, Kate, they should be asking you those questions in a way that's actually relational and not making a giant assumptions in the process
Yeah.
and
I,
impersonal.
I just want to be clear. I think sometimes we, Vic and I in particular can be accused of saying things to elicit a reaction. And yes, I will say things like one call closes dead and all that. But like I said, I want to be clear. We do believe that phone calls and visits to the house and all that are part of the sales process. And Sean's 100% right. I agree. I think part of the reason is the reason for a phone call is somebody wants that warm fuzzy feeling that they've actually talked to somebody before they take the effort to go out, because we all know there's bots and people filling out filling out forms that aren't real people. So I totally get that. But Kate and you both have made the point very clear, and I'll just underscore it just a little bit. It has to be contextual and it has to be personalized, which is what Vic was talking about. And I think if you can do that, you'll have a higher level of engagement, and ultimately your business probably grows faster. Vic, am I leaving anything
No,
out?
I think one thing that came into my mind as we were talking about this, and I was asking a question in my head, if there was some behavioral study among marketing managers and call center managers, and you looked at their dating profile, you'd see how they date people, because they'd be like blasting people, like and they just want responses. You know what I mean? Whereas and it's just the thing came in my crazy head.
Keep
It,
swiping whatever way. Keep
yeah,
swiping whatever way.
and to me, I just think that like I mentioned this in my piece where Sean's mentioned the intents, and I think lead buying is part of marketing, but let's not forget to actually do some actual marketing, because a lot of like you said, there's abundance of leads over the past few years. It's good to be in home improvement, right? That's why Leap is growing, Contractor Appointment, our team is because it's good to be in home improvement. But let's not forget about the customer experience. And that's really where I think the marketing ends for a lot of the people. When they start buying the leads and there's an abundance of it, they become lazy and they just go, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if Kate's single homeowner, right, millennial. I'm going to send the same messaging. I'm going to call her 25 times until she just blocks me, because I need 10 of these leads and they all look the same. Again, homo economicus, right? There's this imaginary perfect lead, and I'm basing all my efforts on that as opposed to doing some actual research. Like, who are these people? Like, where do they come from? Where are they in the buying cycle? And I think it starts off with the leadership, and I think there's too much of a focus on sales, like Sean had mentioned. And again, buying that to culture. Maybe they should educate the marketing team. Maybe they should put them in more seminars and educate them in customer experiences, right? And maybe that's the solution, is not to look at this from just selling, selling, selling. Could be wrong, but
I mean, do the work now. Do the work while life is good. Research while life is good, because those relationships that you're going to build, if those contractors came in and were better with me, and then they're struggling and they reach out to me and they say, "Hey, do you know anybody that's going to be redoing their bathroom soon?" I could refer them. I'm not going to do it now, but yeah, life is good right now, and that's great. But what happens when it's not?
Yep. Agreed.
Absolutely important point. And one of the things that you guys were talking about in terms of like, you're not necessarily saying things that are out of the box specifically to elicit a response. I would argue that if you are in the marketing industry, anything that you are saying out to the general public is for the purpose of eliciting a response. And if you're doing that, then you are succeeding. All right, I have one more question for you, and this one is a biggie. What's the next big step in the evolution and usage of technology platforms? Where do you think that the industry is going for home improvement? Anybody can start this time. Dealer's choice.
I don't know that you want me to start.
Go for it. You look like you're ready.
We started with you. Let's end with you, Kate. Bring it home. Say something that is going to get everybody thinking as we close out this 90 minutes.
I mean, I could say something that's going to get people thinking, but I'll actually do what you asked, the question. No, so coming from a tech organization, which if you guys don't know what Leap is, please look it up. You guys, this industry is so far behind, but not for long. And that's the big thing, is that technology is being adopted at astronomically fast rates. I mean, that's why Leap is doing so well. So if you aren't adopting technology, you're already behind. If you don't have a CRM, you are already behind. If you're still using Google Calendar, you're already behind. Why? Because there are specific tools out there for you that can actually optimize, move your process forward, and can take you from a 3 million to a 30 million in a couple months. Why? Because you're automating those processes. You are making it, you're not taking anybody's job away. You're making it easier so that they can have that work-life balance culture, that they can have some of their honor in their job back. They're not just a machine that's clicking buttons. It's creating that process and giving it back to the people that are working for you. When a job was first created in the ethers, it was because it was a need that needed to be fulfilled. But then we almost mechanized every process to be the point where we are just plugging in machines. By adopting technology, you're almost kind of going backwards in a way of saying, all right, we're going to reinvent what we made this system to let it put it in your hands. Now that you can create a contract in 30 seconds, you don't have to do that while your kid's first birthday party is happening. Now that you can pull all CRM data from a remote location, you don't have to go back and sit in your truck while it's snowing, sleeting, and icing. These are the things that we can do to show we care for our people who work for us, and then in turn our customers, by adopting the technology. And I'll be quiet.
Brilliant.
Casey,
All
land the
right.
plane.
No, I want to hear from Sean too.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go, Sean.
So I think I would agree with Kate. I think the overall technology adoption is still very slow in this industry, and I think although CRMs and people have really good reporting, there's a lack of really automation in every other system or area of the business to be able to if you have to do it twice, and internally we're a lead generator, but we're built on top of technology. We're kind of 50% technology. If we have to do something twice, we automate it. and we create automation around it. And I think that's the only way you're able to scale and grow and expand, and become would be a $3 million to a $30 million organization. In the home improvement industry, the only way most companies have historically done that is add people, and that's not the answer. In this next area of growth for companies, it's kind of prime for disruption for a technology company, and we're seeing it in the bathroom remodel space with and like Made Renovations, and a couple other companies out there that are using technology to help. It's pretty standardized of how big your bathroom is. Let's get a price right away, or a preliminary price. Do a virtual call on that, and then be able to template out these contracts and estimates as fast as possible, because people want to get to price faster. And I think home services is prime for disruption, just from a technology adoption standpoint, so that you can actually sell more with fewer sales reps. You can sell, and whether that's done virtually and you're getting people only out to a home when it's final measurements. And other companies are actually only having installers go out there and do final measurements, and their sales reps are sitting over a Zoom call or a video call like we are here today. So it's I think that is still the adoption. I think virtual is still the kind of the way, or kind of hybrid in that way of kind of sales moving forward.
I do got to
Yeah.
say though that a part of the technology bit is I'm very afraid with the proliferation of technology. What I am concerned and afraid about is that companies have top of mind efficiency, which you get by adopting technology that automates things and mechanizes things and helps people actually do tasks. I think what I'm concerned with is that there's this that's the objective reality, making things 10 times faster. But when you're dealing with humans, you've got to look at a subjective reality, right? The focus should be about the experiences, during that, whether it's your call center reps, your salespeople, these are internal, and of course the customer. And when you automate to the level of efficiency by using platforms like Leap and Contractor Appointments, you do get those efficiencies, and you should, right? And we have partnerships with you guys to help customer. But what we find is there's too much of this goal, because the people harnessing the technology, they're logical, rational people. And so when they look at that, even with users of Leap, they don't see the potential of, well, my salespeople could actually enjoy their presentations more and have more connections. Instead, they focus on, well, I just got to make sure they click on these buttons and they go through this process. Well, they're salespeople. They're going to have to go and maneuver, and you need to get them to experience this in a better way. And the same thing with leads. It's like you can make it efficient, but what about the customer's experience, right? What about that journey? Because that's a subjective part of it. And I argue that, again, if you're enjoying yourself, you probably want time to slow down, not speed up, right? And I think that's my contention, is that technology is great, efficiency is great, but let's not forget that it's people who are using these. And if you focus on the experience, you have end users are happy, right? I think that technology not only helps with your conversion, but it really does help in making you stand out, right, above the rest.
And it goes to culture. Make sure you're aligning yourself with a company like Contractor Appointments, like Leap, that values the culture, that values your experience, and really adopt that. I think that's the key. Is if you're just going to go for a big Google, while Google may say they care, have you ever talked to someone from Google? Because you're talking to someone from Leap right now. So it's kind of one of those things where you got to really make sure that whatever product you buy, whatever system you implement, the culture fits yours, and that you're invested in it.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the golden circle of marketing, a very famous TED talk where it says that users tend to buy into the who is the company before they buy into the product itself. If you haven't checked that out, I do recommend it. It's one of my favorites. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Again, I extremely greatly appreciate Sean and Kate joining us today, a panel discussion. I would be very happy to see y'all again. Oh, speaking of see you all again, hello, here's my face. I'd be happy to see and talk with you both again anytime. For everybody else in the audience right now, just a reminder, we are running that promotion with the first 5 companies to sign up for channel automation. We'll be getting 1 month free. And we would like to hear from you guys, even if it is just for the purpose of asking questions one-on-one. We are happy to give you guys down the rundown of the situation. Again, you can follow us on our social medias, wherever you see it, OneLeg Inc. And also, please go ahead and check out our lovely panel speakers, Leap and Contractor Appointments. If you are looking to get into the good culture of tech forward marketing, I highly recommend them. They are a great place to start. So there's our social media on the screen. Please connect with us and let us know what you thought, even if it's something like, I didn't like that at all. We want to hear from you. So I'll let you guys get on with the rest of your day. It's starting to get to the closing of the week, so I really hope you all have a wonderful weekend and that you've learned a little bit of something for spending the time with us today. Thank you very much. I appreciate the attendance.